Well, it's funny. I was going like looking back through my replies to find Chase Burns is making his debut tonight. So shout out to the Morgans. Hopefully they're watching that. But I was trying to find like what the tweet of like engaging with the Reds fans, and I found something from like August of last year, basically like, I can't believe Julian Lewis is wearing an Indiana shirt. Like, this is huge for the program. Like, in the moment, yes, but like thinking about how far we've come in 10 months is insane.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Like, obviously, Cash isn't the 5-star that Juju is, right? So, like, getting Juju would have been the greatest thing ever.
No,
But,
100%.
having a quarterback before, like, because we're about to hit a dead period, correct?
We're in it. Actually, it started yesterday.
We just hit the dead period. So, to get that quarterback right before the dead period going into, now we can start focusing on fall and focusing on the guys that are there, and and possibly even start scouting the class of 2027 a little bit, and start getting momentum, because if we have a good season, like we're at 19 recruits, that's about six plus spots that can be filled, and with a good season, that could be some pretty high level recruits come November, December, January recruiting cycle. So yeah, excited. It's a huge thing to get accomplished, because it was the one thing that was probably like, we tried nitpicking this program the best we can, and not having a quarterback commit was probably the biggest one, and they got it. So within 6 days of the guy decommitting, which I will say, probably we were talking to him before he decommitted.
100%. Listen, when you're in high school, and as long as you don't sign one of those, and like, we'll see what happens with this Wisconsin Miami thing. We could talk about that a little at the end. But as long as you don't sign an NIL deal where you can get, like, where you are binded to it, then it's fair game. Like, we're like, let's have the conversation about Indiana's class of 2026, because they are at 19. They did, and I think they are still at number 22 on 24/7's rankings. The only real negative we've seen in the last week in terms of Indiana recruiting is that Jay Timmons is now officially on flip watch. Whit Fong put a 60% confidence prediction that he's going to flip to Florida State. That was something we discussed when the Florida State offer initially came through for Timmons. The family connection there is impossible to ignore, and it's like, that's, at the end of the day, what are you going to do? So hopefully you're able to keep a kid like that, a talented kid like that, in the class. You're obviously better if he comes to campus, but like this, we saw this with Byron Baldwin Jr. last year. Like, it wasn't this early, but it's like, I'm not going to rule us out of the race either if he ends up decommitting. So that's kind of the game you play. But if you look at the rest of the class at 26, like, they're in a really good spot.
Yeah, they really are. And I want to give a shout out to Scott. Julian Lewis is a bust. He hasn't played a snap yet. You can't say that. That's not fair. He's a kid. These are kids, guys. They're kids. They're just children. All right, let's relax. And then, Sonny Six Killer from Washington back in the day. I did a quick little search on Sonny Six Killer. The guy threw for 350 yards over a Boomer Esiason over Maryland's Boomer Esiason in the Aloha Bowl in 1982. So,
does that deserve a shout out to the New York media market? Probably not.
I'm going to throw another Washington Husky name at you. I'm going to throw Napoleon Kaufman, all-time leading rusher. That's a good name too. But I don't know if it quite beats Sonny Six Killer, but Napoleon Kaufman, dog back in the day. Not that I was alive to watch, but, I'm a sicko. I've definitely seen clips of him. I mean, he was a hell of a player. All-time leading rusher.
Pac-12 memory of the week?
Pac-12 memory of the week, Napoleon Kaufman. There we go. And Sonny Six Killer. We'll do Sonny Six Killer too. Yeah. 350 yards in the Aloha Bowl over Boomer Esiason.
Let's talk about the class of 26, Brad. You started to kind of get into the evolution of the quarterback recruiting. So if you just kind of want to jump right back into that conversation.
Yeah, like what I see from Whitmer early was, he clearly is a type. He looks for, kind of He looks for good quarterback, you know, bro. I mean, it's not like he has a type, you know, because the difference between Brody McWhorter and Luke Fahey are pretty astronomical, especially inside. I think there's 6 inches between them in terms of height. So totally different like style
No,
of
I don't. Because
throwing. And
McWhorter wasn't that big.
McWhorter is a big guy. He's like 6'5".
I'm
And then
no.
and then what's his face? Luke Fahey, who's probably gonna end
Brody
up being
McWhorter's 6'2", 6'2", 205 on
serious.
24/7. Yes.
He looked a lot taller when I was watching film on him.
No, actually, Herrera is the tallest quarterback they were recruiting.
Well, I like that. I like the taller the better is how I go. But anyways, it's very. I mean, Luke Fahey's like 5'11". Like I don't know. He's not. He might be listed at 6'1", but he's not that. He's not that tall. He's very bulky. But clearly, he likes going after the California guys, going after a kid from La Jolla, going after a kid from Mission Viejo. Those are 2 different areas of SoCal. That's San Diego. That's Los Angeles. Like he clearly is going after, California, which I love. I think that's a great strategy moving forward, especially at the quarterback position. So, yeah. And then you want to talk about the 2026 class?
Yeah, well, I mean, it was just it's interesting to think about it that way because, like I kind of said before, Cash Herrera was the only quarterback in the class where it really felt like it was alignment from both sides, right? Where it was like, yeah, they went after Brody McWhorter, but it was very clear like there was a bunch of different dogs in that race. Like, yeah, they went after Luke Fahey, but it was pretty public that like if Ohio State was a go, then that's kind of where he was leaning. The conversation that we would have liked to have had, and that I don't think it's a negative to not have that conversation, but it's like when you start battling against a school like Ohio State, and like somebody like Fahey could be a special case, right? Because he literally went out of his way to say it's a dream school. And so when you come in with that added advantage, how much can you really recruit on the back end to try and mitigate that? What we would like to see, obviously, is Indiana start winning a lot of these battles. Luke Fahey, Ohio State, he picked up his Wiltfong crystal ball, but at the same time, when you see Cash Herrera commit, you're like, okay, there's the quarterback in this class. Jaquaden Guilford, his commitment date is it today? It might actually be today, or it might be the 27th, one of those two. But he's the Fort Wayne wide receiver. He's got Ohio State, Michigan, Ole Miss, and Indiana in his top 4. And like I haven't seen a ton of smoke one way or the other about him, but I would feel like if there was a pretty good chance he was coming, that there'd be at least some signs or at least a little bit of like buzz. So it's like
Not
the class is
necessarily.
I would say the class is in a phenomenal spot where it would feel like we would be slightly ahead of recruiting schedule if we were going to start to creep up even higher than this. And I think just right now we're right on schedule, which is okay. But I think for a little bit there, it looked like we were going to be ahead of schedule, which was obviously exciting. By any means, I don't think that means we're in a bad spot now.
Yeah, 100%. I don't think there's anything wrong with like this class. Like we're gonna miss on guys, missed on Brody, we're gonna miss on Luke Fahey, we're gonna miss on Travis Johnson. Those are pretty high level recruits. Like that just happens, you know. Like what was the thing when Henry Ollinger got the or no, it was when Timmons got the offer from Florida State. It was like I said, welcome to the Thunderdome. You know, this is just how recruiting goes, right? Like if you're hitting on about 50% of the guys that you really want, like you're probably going to be in a good spot because you're going after about 50 guys that you really want. And if you end up, with half those guys at 25, that's a full class. And you got all the guys you got a full class of guys that, that passed your test and you want on your team, not just, second options, things like that. So yeah, I like I said, I'm just going to keep trusting what this team's doing. I don't think it's guaranteed that Jay Timmons flips. I really don't.
No, I don't think it is either.
I think it's like an obvious. Like there's so many times where these guys are wrong, right? Who was it? Stephen Wiltfong. Like he's wrong all the time. Stephen Wilt wrong is what we should start calling him, and he's that's pretty funny, honestly. But yeah, so him putting a 60% confidence in him flipping is just like that's just like 60 is not even that high. Like to be honest. Like it's really not. Like it's like not even a passing grade. So I'm gonna stick with that. I think we have a good relationship with them. I'm gonna trust our DB coaches. They're really good. Like You have Dontre Henderson's cousin here. Pons will be gone when he's on campus, but I mean, there's just so much talent in this room that he can really, learn from. Because I think
Dontre Henderson.
I got to double check
here.
Gandy and Knighton's eligibility. I don't know if they're one and done's at IU or not.
Gandy's young. Gandy's got at least. I think he's a sophomore.
So it's been a while since I looked at the roster. I've been going off my notepad for. I don't have the years on them.
It's obvious,
notepad for a few weeks now.
Again, it's funny. This kind of brings me back to the way that the Iowa guys were talking about Casherera after he decommitted, where it's like, yeah, obviously you want somebody like that to come into your program, but it's like, where does it leave us ultimately in the grand scheme of things? Like, obviously, I think quarterback is a much more important position than defensive back, but it's like, again, Scott Bainey said it correct right here. Like, Timmons flipping would be a loss, but it won't bury us.
Yeah, Sharp. I just got back. Like, Sharp, Pons, Gandy, and Knighton all have eligibility to come back next year. If they wanted to. I could see Sharp and Pons with a killer year like that. I think we're gonna have. I could see Sharp and Pons both.
Pons is not coming back.
And even then, like, it's like, okay, we still have Gandy and Knighton just slotted into our starting corners for next year. Dontre Henderson just chomping at the bit.
That doesn't even include the freshmen this year, Stewart and Smith and.
Yeah, I like Zach Smith a lot. He's gonna be really good. I like Zach Smith a lot. I don't know what Deontay Stewart is, to be honest. Like, I think we need to figure out a few years. No, he's not gonna be. I don't like that. I think he could be, but I mean, we don't know what he is. So I'm not, Deontay, big physical, guy, heavy hit,
can cover, not afraid to hit.
Yeah, I mean,
imagine that
I would
guy
love
playing
that as a DB,
Brad.
though.
Rover, imagine
we brought in so many linebackers. It makes me think we're not.
I'm not saying this year, dude. He's a freshman.
Yeah, but I mean, we just brought in we just have 3 freshman linebacker commits coming in. Olinger, Savage, they're all coming in.
It might be 4.
Nelson, Kamara, Farmer, they're all gone. They're all there. Quentin Clark. Wait, is Jamari Farmer gone? I forgot to cross him off.
He's in the portal.
Okay. Yeah, I should have updated that on the famous notepad. Hold on.
Yeah, Brian Haynes has an embarrassment of riches at linebacker. And the defensive line in this class, and that was kind of another, I don't know if you can call it a miss, because Kobe Cherry committed to Purdue today. And obviously you kind of like look twice at that one because Tyler Cherry, his brother, was not on the team technically this year, but he's a part of the program. But you then take a look at this Indiana defensive line class, and they're really, really deep at defensive line. Like Kavonte Hugan, Scarface, he's the top-rated defensive lineman in the class. He's right up there with Gabriel Hill. Then you have Trevor Gibbs, who 24/7 lists as an edge. We've heard he's coming in to play tight end. We heard they don't even know what position he's coming in to play. He's just a football player.
To be honest.
Blake Smythe, too, on the defensive line. And that doesn't even include Rodney White, who was, I believe, the first defensive commit in the class. And he was, his tape was really fun, too.
Yeah. Just thinking about it, I think Gibbs is an edge. I think that he'd be scary at the end.
That's another kid's huddle that's just hilariously terrifying if you're on the other team.
Yeah, I'm scared of Trevor Gibbs, and I'm not even playing football anymore. So, and we're probably not even in the same state right now. And I'm worried Trevor Gibbs is going to just bust in my room and just tackle me really hard. That film is scary. It was like watching who was it, Baylor Wilkins film, just scary guy, just body bags after body bag. It's and really athletic as a tight end, which makes me think, he could play tight end, but that athleticism and bend at an edge at that size and strength and tenacity could just be, that's just at NFL that's what they look for,
Dude, we didn't even mention Casimir Hicks, who's arguably the number 1 player in Indiana, coming in at defensive back as well. They have so many dudes. Obviously, Timmons makes that better.
Yeah, so now I think the key, they've addressed running back. They've brought in a couple tight ends. I think they could use.
Yeah, Jerrion Campbell, the running back, had an Alabama offer.
I kind of like that. going into, they can have a stellar year and maybe like receiver. They only have Rupert, who I think is going to be really good, but at the slot, they can go out, find some pretty high level outside guys to kind of come in and be instant impact guys for next year with those open spots that they have. Given a big year from IU, that gives them the ability to pitch a 5-star, 4-star is kind of on the fringe, maybe committed to a team that disappoints this upcoming year, and they can maybe even flip
100%.
them. So yeah, and we're still waiting on Guilford too, who's a 4-star receiver in his own right. So yeah, we're in a really good spot. Just overall.
That's the other point I wanted to make about the class, is that if you like, the other criticism I guess you could make is, well, this can't be a criticism because they've been very blatant that they're going to take 1 to 2, maybe 2 running backs a class max. Coach John Miller runs his room in a very specific way, and they have their guys and they're good.
You can't take 2 running backs every class. Like, you just can't do it.
I know there's just not enough mouths to feed.
Not enough scholarships.
Jerry on Campbell, stud. They're good there. Tight end, they brought in 2 or 3 guys, I think. Elmore and PJ McFarland, and I think that's it.
That's it. Unless you want to count Gibbs. At that point, it's like Gibbs is not playing tight end.
Is Gibbs? Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah.
It's like Gibbs is not playing tight end. He's getting to play defense, and yeah, he's a scary guy. So I kind of want him on defense, anyways. But they can maybe even run. But then they could run packages with Gibbs. Hear me out. Remember, all right, Pac-12 memory of the week. Speaking of Washington. So Jim Mora days, they'd run these sets. They'd go Kenny Clark, who was an NFL nose tackle for the end. They go T-bone, basically. They go Brett Hundley under center. They go Eddie Vanderdoes and Kenny Clark, who are both NFL D linemen. They go Miles Jack in the back. And usually they'd run it with Miles Jack, but sometimes they'd throw it to Eddie Vanderdoes. And that could be maybe Trevor Gibbs' role, coming in as like a extra, you want to go heavy package, bring him in as like a blocker, and then maybe once in a while throw him the ball for a touchdown. I think that could be electric. Opens the door for a lot of packages. It's amazing what happens when you have high level athletes on the team and the amount of things that you can do. And Trevor Gibbs could be one of those guys where, he plays defense, but he comes in on an offensive, heavy set on the goal line, and maybe drop a little play for him. Maybe put him out in the flat a little bit, run play action. He's wide open in the flat, touchdown. Touchdown Hoosiers.
That's super. But where I was going with that was, you look at Cortez Rupert, obviously the only receiver in the class, really like his huddle as well. And you're like, okay, maybe they're a little bit light. We'll see what happens with Guilford. They've put themselves to be, again, in prime position to be a flip candidate come later this fall. Another good year from Indiana, and maybe a lot of the things you're saying, to your point, Brad, maybe you have a couple guys committed to teams that didn't perform up to standard, and the pitch hits a little bit different when you're seeing it happen for a second straight year. And then the other kind of, I don't know if I'd call it a weak spot. I do like the guys in the interior of the offensive line they brought in. They don't really have somebody right now who can slot into it. Either tackle, that'd probably be an area where we'd like to go look at. LaRon Dews made a little bit of a pitch to his left tackle from Cardinal Mooney, Deron Parks. His tape is an unbelievably fun watch if you like offensive line play. So that would be a really fun add to this class in this offensive line. That kid screams Bob Bostad guy, so that would be really fun. But other than that, it's like
I would have to. I mean, Kenton Mondu is a tackle. But then the other 2 guys.
Oh, Mondu is definitely a tackle. You're
Skiffers
right.
And Skiffers. I hope I'm saying that right. CJ Skiffers and Samuel Simpson. Those guys are interior. Skiffers is just the freaky 6'6", 325 guy who could just be an NFL guard one day. But maybe, but with that size, who knows what you can do at tackle. But I mean, with that size, it screams tackle, but I didn't really see it too much on film, to be honest. As a college level tackle.
You were talking about you love tall guards.
Yeah, I do. I do love tall guards. You look at an NFL O-line, not a whole lot of guys are sub 6'4" besides the center. Just even then, some of the best centers, like Brandon Linder from the Jags comes to mind. He was 6'7" in his own right way back in the day. Obviously, when you think center, you kind of think Jason Kelsey these days, but typically like NFL linemen are 6'5" plus. Like that's just how it goes, regardless of position. And that's why, people are so concerned about quarterback height and Bryce Young coming out of the draft, right? Because you got to throw over those guys. At the NFL, you can't really just get away with just being 6'3", 320. It doesn't really work when you got to block, Aaron Donald and Snacks Harris, just guys like that. It doesn't work. So, bigger the better.
Absolutely. To wrap up recruiting, there are a couple different guys Indiana's kind of still in the mix for. Obviously, we've mentioned Guilford a number of times. Nick Reddish is a defensive back, probably leaning Notre Dame, but Indiana is firmly in his top 5. And then Cortez Redding is a defensive back who Indiana's in his top 5 as well. But I believe his commitment date is like July 20 something or something like that. So who knows?
Yeah, I think they're definitely in the running for Cortez Redding. I think Cam McAney, that defensive lineman who's from IMG, I think they're still in the mix there. Jack Fuchs, another tackle from Tennessee, they're in the running there. Ronell Johnson, an edge from Missouri, they're in the in the weeds there. Another edge from Georgia, Cottrell Webb. They're in the running.
Cottrell Webb, yeah, he was there actually. Yeah, good call with Cottrell Webb because he made Indiana made his top 3, and he's committing soon too.
And speaking of really good names, Jeremiah Favorite, a corner from South Carolina. Indiana is definitely in the mix there. So they've done great during this summer cycle, and I think now it's time to kind of wind down and start focusing on fall, which is super exciting because we're going to get pads we're probably going to get pads in about 6, maybe 5 weeks. It's exciting.